Nice little fade out there. All right. Let me know if you can hear me properly and that the audio is going good. Had a little bit of trouble when I was getting started earlier, doing all my sound checks and stuff. Thank you if you are joining me live. This is, of course, yet another episode of the Rough Report, reporting live from here in Ottawa, Ontario. We're going to be talking more about the Flu Trucks clan. Going to be doing a little bit more coverage on that because if you were watching live last time, or even if you didn't watch live, you might have noticed that our show suddenly cut off and the stream ended. Hopefully that doesn't happen again tonight. Very much hope not. Nat is probably going to be joining us in a bit, hence why this chair is here, but she's just wrapping up a couple things around the house before she comes down to join me. Yeah, so let's get right to it. There was a piece of footage. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again for joining us live today, Jessica. Always a pleasure to have you. Okay. I meant to have a laptop on my desk with me to be a bit of an aid, so I didn't have to click around on the same computer that I'm streaming from. Didn't quite do that though. But yeah, there's a piece of footage in last week's episode that I meant to show, but it didn't. I didn't get around to it because again, the stream dropped. Cross our fingers that that doesn't happen again. But yeah, I was. We had ended the last stream so suddenly, talking about the very fascist presence and the fascist-oriented organization around the trucker convoy, and that, of course, to many people is going to sound very hyperbolic. You know, the word fascist tends to get thrown around in all kinds of ways. That to many people who aren't perhaps actively engaged in political circles and political thought don't completely maybe grasp the various contexts in which it's used, and it can eventually just sound like this term that maybe starts to lose meaning to certain people. And but when I say that there is fascist organization around this, not only from the couple pictures that we saw before, but right down to the GoFundMe, and we're going to be talking about the GoFundMe a lot. We're going to be talking about the people that organized it and the people that were mainly the strong presence that drove this. I don't want to call it a political movement, so to speak, because it kind of lacks, I think, some essential things that makes it a real movement. But yeah, they definitely used this moment in people's sensitivities and anxieties around COVID and COVID restrictions to bolster themselves. And, regardless how you feel about mandates, I saw a great cartoon that explained this. If you want to protest to some capacity how this country is handling COVID and COVID restrictions, there's certainly room for that, to express that in a certain way. But it's like joining up with the crowd that has been the driving force behind this the Freedom Convoy is like going to a barbecue thrown by the KKK. Not because you like the KKK, but just because you really like hot dogs. I think that stands as an excellent metaphor for essentially how fascism spreads and how people essentially begin to become passive to it and normalize it, and don't appreciate the impact that it is going to have on people in general, but especially certain groups. So this is Pat King. He is one of the, again, main organizers. If you look up Patrick King, you'll find his name all around this Freedom Convoy stuff. He did a big speech in Ottawa to a big crowd, lots of cheers. Like, we're not talking about, the saying is a few bad apples spoiled the bunch. But they try and say that there's this defense that it's just a few bad apples. This guy gave a applauded speech to a large audience at the heart of these Ottawa protests. Let's hear what Pat King thinks about the vaccine in this context.
Now, what it is the part of the depopulation. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. And what there's an end game. It's called depopulation of the Caucasian race, or the Anglo-Saxon. And that's what the goal is to depopulate the Anglo-Saxon race. Because they are the ones with the strongest bloodlines. And we'll leave it at that, because then we get into a whole different topic. But it's a depopulation of race. Okay, that's what they want to do. I've spoken before about how we have Ahmed Ahmadinejad, or Mahmoud. I can't say their names very well because I don't have the dialect that they do. But we have Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who states that no matter what, we are going to infiltrate governments, education systems. We're going to infiltrate every way possible into the Western world. What we're going to do is not only infiltrate by flooding with refugees, we're going to infiltrate the education systems to manipulate it to endorse this kind of behavior. This kind of behavior then endorses less procreation. All right, so the less procreation, the less white people, or, Anglo-Saxon. Let's say Anglo-Saxon, because when I say white, all the Antifa guys call up the race card. So we're going to call ourselves Anglo-Saxon, okay?
Oh, God. So just like a bunch of, like, he spews a bunch of sort of like the half-baked formations of very racist theories, and believes that that the white race is under some sort of great replacement or great extinction, and that there is some shadowy group of people that is going to eliminate the white race. It's bonkers, obviously, and not founded in any kind of reality. But beyond that, we're not going to get into that. It gets in a whole other subject, even though that's like the entire subject he's talking about. He's not a very bright guy overall. But he is extremely committed to his racist beliefs. So naturally, that's going to get him some popularity in a certain audience. And standing against the, liberal government and wanting to shut it down is part of his goal, because he believes, this liberal democracy is part and parcel to that elimination of the white race. And that's why you're seeing this now, like, full-on occupation of Ottawa, where by this crowd. I mentioned in the last episode where some people seem to think that there were 2 million people there, twice the population of the Ottawa area. Absolutely goofballs. And there's not nearly that many, obviously. I haven't checked on the latest numbers, but it's not that. And like not even close by a long shot. Like not even clocking in to the left of a decimal point on the percentiles there. But besides the point, there's a large group that has stayed, caused significant damage. The mayor of Ottawa is now filing a lawsuit, namely amongst the defendants because he's a main organizer, Pat King. He's filed a lawsuit to basically sue them for the damages that they've caused and the essentially terrorization of the neighborhood. Being in Ottawa myself, I can say with I don't know many people in Ottawa that well because I'm pretty new here and we're in lockdowns and stuff. You brought down dinner? Oh, okay. So yeah, so I don't know that many people, but the people that I have talked to ever so briefly about this, they're obviously none of them are happy. It's quite obvious none of them are happy. Sorry, I got distracted by you coming down here. So I was just talking about how the fact that, the mayor of Ottawa has declared a state of emergency and, he's suing, amongst many people, Pat King here. For the damages, here, let me pull up the news story so I can get on track here. Yeah, because your monitor isn't up. All right, there we go. And your microphone needs to be turned on. There you go. Okay, so where is it? Might have lost that window. Great. Cool. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, that's what I wanted to pull up. The $9.8 million lawsuit targets Ottawa occupation leaders. Leaders GoFundMe cuts off $10 million fund. Tamara Lich quits Maverick Party board. Series of hilarious things there. Tamara Lich is suddenly, wanting to remove herself from the heat of this moment in some capacity. I haven't gotten a lot of details as to what the greater reasons are as to why, so a lot of it would be speculation, but anything that you can reasonably speculate, to me, is hilarious. So, but yeah, basically this albertapolitics.ca lays out kind of the nature of what's happening in terms of this lawsuit and why there is a state of emergency and essentially why this protest is, despite much of the media referring to it as peaceful, it is really not. It is more or less a terrorization of the citizens for an extended period of Ottawa. This isn't really affecting politicians. You know what I mean? This isn't doing the sort of job that they think it's doing. It's just pissing people off, largely. Not to mention, just the fact that it's all attached to notable fascists. So basically, Pat King was like, I'm not leaving Ottawa till the Liberal government is dissolved. And it's like, I don't know how you think that's going to happen. That's just not going to happen like that. That's not how anything works. And speaking as someone who, from a socialist perspective, maybe wouldn't completely mind the the government as we know it being dissolved in certain ways. So I might have a certain sympathy with that government disappearing, not in the same way they would, obviously, but that's just not how it's gonna go down. It's obviously a giant scam. They've already started like another GoFundMe thing with a different website. That apparently, because they're now all speculating that it's like, the liberal ghouls and secret shadowy people, pulled the strings at GoFundMe, and that's why they're, but it quite explicitly violates they as a company's terms of service. And when you're a company that doesn't want to be involved in certain political moments, the best course of action is not to just treat them like any other fundraiser and let them do their thing because we're so non-political. No, to be non-political in this capacity would be to say we're not going to be a part of this at all, and we're not going to treat you at all, just period. We're removing ourselves from this. We wash our hands clean of you. They were pretty sympathetic and easygoing for a while until the things really started to hit the fan there. So here, getting into the new GoFundMe. What is the name of this? Just to show you an example, here's a CBC article. GoFundMe ends payments to convoy protests, citing reports of violence and harassment. Like the local soup kitchen had to put out a notice basically condemning these guys for demanding food from them that was meant for the homeless of Ottawa, and they come in just basically, it's funny how this crowd really hates handouts. They talk about handouts and free stuff as it's a sense of broken morals to want the free stuff, and then they want all the free stuff and demand it and terrorize people essentially into getting it. It's despicable, and it goes to show like the lack of consistency in their values, right? Like,
well, it's not just that; it's just also the lack of understanding how how things work. Like them descending upon the soup kitchen was on the first night because they hadn't actually made appropriate arrangements to feed their participants, and so this was really a result of a lack of planning, and it goes to show they actually have no idea how things work behind the scenes. They have no idea all the hard work that goes into planning a protest and like actually making sure that your people are taken care of and not having to like hope and pray that someone's going to take care of you after you get to the location. Like when you have movements that are well planned out, you have the accommodation set up. You don't descend upon hotels and berate them for making you wear a mask in the lobby because you know that you know what to expect at your accommodations. Like, it's just the lack of forward thinking, and then the fact that they're able to do all this without having anything planned and continue on with it for a week is boggling. Like, you cannot in good faith tell me that the huge amount of leeway that they've been given is not a result of this being a movement led by white nationalists. Like, any leftist movement absolutely would have gotten shut down the first night. Like, in Ottawa and in Toronto, the police have been used to disassemble homeless encampments during the winter even. So you can't tell me that they don't know how
go
to
back
disassemble
and watch the footage of Occupy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just a bunch of people sitting in the middle of the street, and they get bum rushed by a legion of armored cops.
And this isn't to say that, like, hey, the state used violence against the left. We want the state to use violence against the right. It's that, you need to understand how this is unequally applied. So, like, even when they had the counter protesters now this weekend, which direction are the police facing? They're facing the counter protesters. Funny. Wonder why that is.
Yeah, you can easily find the images of that. I wanted to show this tweet. Yeah. Like, as this guy notes, what do you have? Kurt Phillips here. It's a long thread, so that's what the 52 is about. This is the 52nd tweet in this thread. I read a little bit of it and I didn't go through all of this. But, I do recommend it. And here is, as he's describing in the tweet here, Pat King seems to believe paying for a service gives you the right to abuse its staff. Let's see what this moron has to say now.
So please spread this out. You think that this game is just a game of a bunch of truckers hanging out on the street? No. Look what they're doing. Look, and the media will not touch that. The media is told not to say it. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick King from my control room. Oh, the hotels as well. They're telling the hotel owners and managers not to let people rent rooms. They're kicking people out of their hotels. So we had 3 people last night were just kicked out of their hotels because they wouldn't wear a mask, and telling them even though they paid for a service, you're going to deny them that service that they've already paid for. That's wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, keep up the good work. Keep up the fight. We're here for each and every one of you. So please spread this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just looping.
It's 2 years in.
Why is he acting like this is just, I have to wear a mask? My God.
You can deny me service for not following public health measures 2 years in after this has been a thing?
This guy, as the far conservative that he is and believer in freedom that he is, as the owner of an establishment, saying these are my terms and conditions for supplying you with service, and if you don't like it, here's your fucking refund. It's amazing how he's not in favor of their ability to exercise that freedom.
That's because these folks will not be happy until they can legitimately spit into the open mouth of their waitress as they're getting their flapjacks.
Well, they just won't be happy till they literally can do whatever they want with zero accountability.
Yeah,
that's what the hypocrisy is all about. That's what the complete lack in consistent values is here. Because if this was a debate about if the business owner should allow the black guy to come in and shop, it would be a completely different tone coming from this guy. Right? Like, oh, you're going to deny me service? That is wrong. And then on the flip side, he would go, well, of course they can deny him service. It's a free country.
Yeah. Like, they don't need to make
no
gay
consistency
cakes.
in their ideology whatsoever.
Except for poo-poo, pee-pee, don't tell me what to do. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Pee-pee, poo-poo, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be the former because, they of course, they'd mess up the rhyme, right? Like that would be their thing. So yeah, there was that. You saying that made me want to pull that up really fast. But there was another thing I wanted to get to. Oh yeah, it was about the GiveSendGo.com is now what's hosting the fund for these idiots, and now. So here, let me switch screens so we can see that nice and clear. And this tweet here from Jeremy. Check it out yourself and go to the website. Go to Campaign Trucker Convoy and click top donations. It's all there. The top ones are nowhere near close to the average donation pouring in, and it's all in USD. Interesting. Big money American donors concerned about this movement in Canada. Really odd. And, so I started to read a little more into this. This is from Canada's National Observer. Startling Trump interference points to GoFundMe convoy campaign manipulation, because Trump expressed and made a statement basically you know, calling Trudeau something of like, a liberal commie or something like that, expressing his sympathy for this movement, because of course he would. As we all know, Donald Trump is a fascist. Try and argue with me on that point. I dare you. Yeah, so this interference, essentially his statement, his making a point to make this comment on this movement in Canadian politics, more like a bowel movement, I'd say. Obvious joke.
AstroTurfed.
Yeah, and now AstroTurfed, of course. Well, it was AstroTurfed from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is extremely unusual, and I talked about this in the previous episode about certain things about this where you don't even need to look up the information to know that there's some bullshit going on just based on the numbers. Like when somebody says there's 2 million people occupying Ottawa, you don't even need to look that up. It's so silly. You just like fundamentally know it's not true.
Well, except for that, if you believe that, you need to look up the actual population of Ottawa to understand that
well,
is...
like 2 million people have never protested anything like
Canada.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
I even think some of the largest protests in South America where like, seas of people were filling the streets. I don't think those numbers ever got to like 2 million. I don't know. I could be wrong there, but that's an extreme thing, and that's obviously just not what was happening in Ottawa. It's objectively silly. So something should have ring alarm bells in your head when this fund on GoFundMe in the first place got to $10 million. And the fact that now organizers are asking for $16 million, probably in large part because of this freaking lawsuit that they're now facing. Yeah, like you think that is an astronomically high number for something like this.
Well, also,
and who in Canada is donating that much money? Well, it's evidently not Canadians.
Well, also, folks... So, like I was saying before, they don't understand what goes into organizing stuff. They also don't understand what kind of scant budgets most nonprofits are actually working at. I'm not talking about like United Way or like Pink Ribbon or stuff like that. I'm talking about like community-centric, actual grassroots as opposed to AstroTurf organizations. These are organizations who, provide material support for people in the communities, and they struggle all year long to hopefully maintain their funding so they can maintain their services. And, like, these fucks just go ahead and toss all their money at these fucking truckers. Like, I am just so gutted that we could have, like, universal dental. We could have like a 20-hour work week. We could have like a utopia if the amount of fucking people I've seen supporting these fucking truckers actually supported and protesting for something that would benefit all of us. Like, oh my God. It shits me to fucking death. Like, this is what moves you. This is what you share. This is what you think is going to get us someplace positive. Like,
and like in this right here, U.S. Republicans vow to probe GoFundMe's decision to cut funds. Like, you can't, of course it's, Republicans. You can't tell me that there's like a pointed, political direction this is going in, right? We're not talking about people that are just concerned, right? As they try and pose it, there's a very obvious political direction. But on top of that, I just found this funny because some U.S. Republicans on Saturday vowed to investigate GoFundMe. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Jewish lightning lady.
Space lasers, that guy?
Yeah, Jewish space lasers. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the space lasers. Of course, I guess she didn't want to go the magic angle. It had to be the technology angle. Space lasers instead of lightning. The convoy protest began as a movement against a Canadian vaccine requirement, blah, blah, blah. This is the part I wanted to get to. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and if you ever read anything about Ron DeSantis, this guy's a fucking clown. Almost like he's a danger, but everything he says is so goofballs. He said on Saturday it was fraud for GoFundMe to commandeer $9 million he obviously didn't look into this at all before just flapping off at the mouth, as these people tend to do. Because,
He says,
earlier that day, GoFundMe had already put out a public statement saying everyone was getting a refund. They didn't even have to do anything. The refund was going to be automatic. So that information was already out there in very public knowledge. Ron DeSantis, reactionary's going to react, I guess.
oh, these donors should be given a refund? Great idea. Why didn't they think of that? But
Like what? What makes you think that they were like, what, GoFundMe was just gonna keep the money? Like,
well,
is that what he thought?
well, I mean, they have the money. I wouldn't have given it back.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaks to the morals there, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. But
So yeah. Oh yeah. Here's the statement I was talking about from Donald Trump earlier. Let me get this. Yeah. Trump Media and Technology Group. Donald Trump is endorsing the Ottawa convoy, calling Justin Trudeau a far-left lunatic who has destroyed Canada.
okay, so I'm gonna interrupt one moment. So before we get into like the actual meat of that, that acronym makes me think Teenage Mutant Ninja Girdles. Okay, I'm sorry.
Mutant Ninja Girdles.
Turgles on a half shell. Girl power.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Okay, sorry. Anyways,
Okay.
go with the actual point.
So, a statement from President Trump. I like how he's still calling himself. Well, I guess he's president of this media group, right? Maybe that's the
no,
rub there.
he's chairman.
But,
It says right below that.
oh, it really does it?
What says President
Oh
Trump?
yeah,
slash
President
chairman?
Trump, comma chairman. So he's still referring to himself as president, which is just very adorable,
Yeah,
right?
It's like you're in your 40s and you still refer to yourself as your high school quarterback.
Yeah. I'm quarterback, Yeah. The statement is classic Trump-like goofiness, right? Facebook and big tech are seeking to destroy the Freedom Convoy of truckers. The Freedom Convoy is peacefully protesting the harsh policies of the far-left lunatic Justin Trudeau, who has destroyed Canada with insane COVID mandates. Need we remind you that the U.S. is number one in COVID cases and deaths. They are USA number one. They have killed more people with COVID than any other country, and I phrase it that way because their complete lack of proper response and responsibility and not wanting to take action because freedom.
They would have killed fewer people if it had just been a lackadaisicalness. But they're
yeah, it's actively like it's not just being lackadaisical, because I would say that about how we've handled it as a country, like how Canada has handled it, or Ontario with our Doug Ford as premier. We've been lackadaisical about it. And bridging on harmful. I would say the U.S. has just been outright harmful in their policies and their demand that people continue to go to work, continue to act like life is normal because of the economy and wanting to serve
even
their corporate
like
masters.
Passing legislation to prevent mask mandates, which
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
fucking bonkers.
I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, like so much for freedom of business to even decide their own policies. Like people, like making sure that businesses
Insane.
can't
You
enforce
can't-
that. Like,
yeah.
what?
Well, like it's the same crowd that cries about book burnings and then turns around and burns a bunch of books because it has like magic and Satan in it or something.
And
I
typically
think a
gay
book
people.
burning just happened in the U.S. if I remember correctly, like a big mass one where they threw all the Harry Potter books in the fire. I could picture a lot of people on our side of the political spectrum doing that, but again, for a whole different set of reasons. Generally speaking, though, we're smart enough not to just burn stuff that we've already paid money for.
Yeah, typically we'll boycott as opposed to like wasting our money.
We're not
But-
going to buy it anymore.
Yeah.
is usually the better.
Yeah. But also, one thing that tends to get glossed over in our history is it's not just burning a book. It's the focus of what has historically been burned, and historically.
Oh, of course, yeah. That's a bit of a different tangent. It was gender science that got burned largely. Just to, I don't know, say that quickly.
So like when folks now are like, oh well, transgender people were invented in 2006. No,
no, the Nazis literally burned almost every bit of scientific knowledge that might have existed at the time, because one of the leading scientists in it was a German guy. So, yeah. So yeah, like a far left lunatic that is Justin Trudeau. I always love this Justin Trudeau is like a communist stuff, because it's just so demonstrable that you don't know what communism is.
And
I don't understand what the angle is there. I really like. I just want to have. I would love to have a face-to-face conversation, or even like a video call conversation with somebody, and really hear them out as to why they think Trudeau is a communist. I really want to take someone to task on that. Or like, yeah, where do you get the idea he's a far left lunatic? Like, where does that come from? I almost wish it were true. I'd probably be delighted.
Oh, I don't almost wish. I absolutely wish. But no, I don't think. So you're operating under the assumption that they are saying that and actually thinking that in good faith, as opposed to wanting to push Justin Trudeau further right to prove them wrong.
Yeah, that's generally the strategy is, and you know, you've seen that repeated throughout the U.S. that anything to the left of, you know, hunting the homeless for sport is communism, right? Mm-hmm. And that is a way of definitely pushing that sort of Overton window, so to speak, further to the right. And I would say I'd probably agree in that it's been a successful strategy for them, largely. If you refer to anything that's just not far right wing as far left lunacy, and hammer that nail long and hard enough, yeah, it's definitely going to catch on. It's like the idea of, you know, like anything else that they perpetrated as like a stereotype, right? You know, like I remember in the Reagan era, they had the welfare queen that was, you know, taking advantage of the system and just living it up and not having to work. Mm-hmm. And that was the stereotype of the person living on state benefits, you know.
Which is like, you know, now because they have pushed that and because capitalism, the middle class, etc., has just disintegrated and our buying power has just disappeared. I think, and especially with, you know, with the Rona and work from home and people realizing that corporations will, you know, literally step over your dead body to pick up a penny. Yeah. Getting paid to stay at home and sit on my ass. That sounds like. But the thing is about why did we decry that? Because like I think that should be the fucking ideal. Like. Oh
yeah. But like the other side of that is like, yeah, we say you could say that they don't they make these arguments in bad faith and they call these people far left in bad faith, which, you know, I totally agree with. I think that's a thing. I think there's people who do peddle that on purpose, so to speak. But I think the other half of that is the greater part of the audience that hears it and echoes it, just echoes it.
Oh, they've been propagandized.
Yeah, like, completely propagandized. Yeah. And those are the people I want to talk to. I don't mean the people who, like, nobody's going to get through to
Trump.
Yeah, right? But I want to talk to the people that Trump has gotten through too, you know, the people who have been gradually influenced to be like, yeah, he is onto something. I want to talk to like that guy, you know, and really take them to task. Because I think for the most part, you will find that it's strictly a confirmation bias survival response that sort of becomes, you know, there's a great Twitter thread I actually shared on it in the psychology of addiction and how it relates to righteous outrage and the confirmation biases that can come with righteous outrage, and that the, you know, neurological dopamine responses in the brain are almost entirely similar. like essentially getting this righteous outrage and exercising it and having it echoed in your social circles and stuff like that is essentially an addiction. And yeah, and the addict will, when confronted with a threat to their addiction, such as, you're seeing this trend in friends and family that, he won't give up his Trumpian beliefs, right? So he's abandoning, he's cutting the libs out of his life and stuff like that, right? And it's that sort of thing. It completely detached, of course, from the people who cut out their conservative family members. Obviously, very different in that, I'm a trans person and they disowned me. That's obviously going to be a very different. Thing.
I can't bring my partner home because I'm worried about if not getting disowned of being assaulted over the dinner table. Because,
exactly, right.
Yeah.
People are faced with that legitimate fear.
Mm-hmm.
Classic campaign campaign manipulation on Trump's part. He just loves doing it, even if it's a campaign for raising funds for truckers in Canada.
Or for fucking dog walker.
It's just like it's like his kink. He wants to be all up in disrupting those campaigns. It's his thing. I wanted to get into this. I've seen a lot of people. I think this guy might have been on Joe Rogan, or I might be getting him mixed up with somebody else. But he is a viral immunologist out of Guelph University, I believe. But he's come out with some really goofy anti-COVID science stuff. And this coming from a doctor with a position at a university, it becomes dangerous stuff. It's easier to convince people when you're like, no, it's not just, this crazy fringe media that's questioning this.
Mm-hmm.
We have a doctor now.
Yeah, which also doesn't address the fact that even what do you call a person who graduated at the bottom of his medical school? Doctor.
Yeah.
Right?
Still a doctor, yeah. But, he's going to show us this little experiment to prove that masks don't work. Now, if you don't know much about science, and I admittedly, in the grand scheme compared to, actual doctors and scientists, I know very little. But I know a few basic things. And I don't know how much of you out there will, but I caught the bullshit pretty fast in this video. So if you don't feel bad, I will explain. But let's just watch this now notable quack describe to us why masks don't work.
I wear glasses, so when we breathe on, the lenses and fog them up. The moisture we're getting on there, that's the aerosol. Scientific studies before this pandemic have shown that low-cost masks, and when we're talking about surgical masks and the cloth masks we're wearing, these low-cost masks have pore sizes that range between 80 and 500 microns in size, so a huge range, right? The diameter of the virus is 1 micron. The largest possible small droplet that can comprise a typical aerosol and 2 viral particles is 62 microns in diameter. So I just want to put that in perspective. The smallest pore size is 80. So that means the largest droplet coated with the virus can pass right through. Now, so let me see if I can show you this. We've been told to use up to 3 masks. So I've got 1, and I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to get all these on. One of the things
it's only 3.
My right ear cannon now is permanently deformed a little bit. It sticks out from my head more than the other one because of all the mask wearing. But so let me put on, here's 2 masks. Here's 3. I'll put on a 4th one. I don't know if we'll get the 5th one on. Okay, so I got 5 masks. They're 3-ply surgical masks, so 15 layers. I'm going to seal it around my mouth. If this is true, the aerosols will come through.
Now, a couple things before he gets to this part. Notice he said low-cost masks. He doesn't mention specific brands or types of cloth or things like that. I think to a degree, he might make a good point in that certain cloth masks and low-cost masks probably aren't very good. That's a good point. Maybe we should have more N95 masks. Maybe we should be better educated on what good masks are. That might be a good suggestion, weirdo doctor. I don't think that's where he was going with it, though. But yeah, we're going to get a lot more into this, why the science of this is bad. I just want to show this more.
Through, then this should fog up. We'll see.
Oh my God, it's fogging up.
Can you see that fog?
Oh,
What's this?
oh my God.
I made a cross. Can you see my eyes through that
Oh
cross?
my God, he made a cross. You
So
can see
there's so much moisture there. That you
So
can
much
see, look at that cross
moisture.
pattern. There's so much moisture there. So
much
I'm not
moisture.
going to say anymore, right?
I'm not going to say anymore. So that was completely bogus.
No.
And let us explain why. First of all,
Is it magnets?
no. How do they work? It's a miracle, is actually how magnets work. This is not a miracle, though.
No.
The fog on glasses is not caused by moisture, largely, or at least moisture in the air that's being blasted up towards the glass. You can Google this. Go ahead and Google it right now. What causes glass to fog? It's a difference in temperature. It has nothing to do with aerosols in the air that is blasting forward. Because if you were getting condensation of that kind, you would literally see the droplets appearing on there. Fog is caused by simple contrast in temperature. If warm air hits a cool glass surface, it will fog up. It doesn't need to be moist. There's moisture in the air already.
But what if I'm speaking moistly?
That's just literally how being fogged up works. Like, you could be not wearing a mask and you come in from an extremely cold outside and walk into a very warm inside. All the glasses wearers out there knows what happens.
Is it the coronavirus?
Are you being sprayed with aerosols when you walk indoors? Is that how your glasses are fogging up?
I mean, that's how I try to greet you when you come home, spraying you with aerosols.
No, that's not. So that's just simply not how it works. You can, again, look this up, because I certainly did, just to make sure I knew I was being accurate, unlike this doctor who apparently didn't care to be accurate.
And I love how at the end of it he says, I'm not going to say anything further, and then posts in black and white, do masks work?
Masks work?
Yeah.
Oxygen molecules are something like 0.0008 microns or something like that. Significantly smaller than any aerosol, and significantly smaller than coronavirus. So, of course, even with 5 masks on, and he breathes with pressure behind it, like he's holding the mask up like this, and creating like this concentrated hose tube, of course, the warm air coming from his body is going to get through those masks, because that's what they're designed to do, so you can breathe in them. Of course, and it's going to hit the slightly cooler surface of his glasses and create fog. It has nothing to do with aerosols. Nothing.
Moist Hot Hose Tube is the name of my next album.
It's just like it's so frustrating. And like I've when I was talking to a couple friends who were telling me about, members of their family that were wrapped up in this anti-COVID science and stuff, I would, ask a few questions, and for the few people that I have asked this series of questions to, I've gotten similar answers. Where did you get this information from is one of my big ones. This doctor's name has come up about 2 or 3 times within these conversations. So people in this science questioning community, I'm being generous when I say that, they're listening to this guy. And right there in that video right there just shows how completely dishonest and not scientific he's willing to be.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that most people are science illiterate, and that's not an insult. It's for a lot of our lives, who has needed to be science literate, right? Like, you go to work, you go home, you go about your life, and some things work outside the realm of your understanding, and that's okay. It works regardless of whether you understand it or not. But now it's just like we're at a point where this is becoming a problem, that people aren't science literate because charlatans like this. And it's not a new problem, but gosh,
let me tell you, let me show you what an actual scientific study looks like, because I was reading through this one after I watched this video.
They're boring and long.
It's boring and dense. It's tough to get through.
Yeah.
And that's how you can almost immediately assert that most people just aren't going to read this shit.
Or even if they do, they don't understand it. And that is not an insult. It's just a matter that, like, that's why scienticians go to school, to understand this stuff, because it's dense, because, that's why they put years of study into these things to, be able to run a scientific study that can be replicated by their peers, and that can be audited, and, like, prove something works, doesn't work.
Yep.
And somewhere in the middle, right?
Absolutely. Here's a good example of that. The same doctor asserted that and the researcher in question is this same doctor, I believe, Byron, claimed that COVID-19 vaccines spike protein and is a toxin. So if your time is short, we're just going to read this part because our time is short. Experts say there is no evidence that the vaccines produce a toxin that could cause heart problems and neurological damage, as Canadian viral immunologist Byron Bridle maintained. Bridle has not produced evidence to his claim, which has been widely shared on social media. And, when we watched that video of me taking that call from that lady last week, what was her answer when she said where she got a lot of her stuff from? I saw it on Facebook, as if that was supposed to give it substance to me. Yeah. This is a huge problem, that these social media companies take zero accountability for them spreading this knowledge. But meanwhile, any organization like PolitiFact trying to maintain any level of integrity is just, it's an uphill battle for them every step of the way, and it's just maddening.
Yeah, I think part of the issue and part of what the answer has to be is, and I know that these attempts are out there, like, I'm not going to say that no one's thought of this as my idea first, is that we sincerely need to dumb things down to make them more accessible, not in a kindergarten insulting way, but just to break things down to their bare elements, so that they're easily shareable, so that people who aren't scientifically savvy can better understand them. But on top of that, one thing that frustrates me to no end during a lot of this counter-protest stuff, and I understand it, I'm not going to begrudge anybody, but just the instinct to basically confront without asking questions. And I know, like, I'm not saying that, you need to get in a debate with a Nazi. What I'm saying is, for example, if you have someone who you think could potentially want to listen, start by asking questions, like, why are you here? What do you think this is accomplishing? What about healthcare not being funded properly, which is a whole reason why we're locked down right now, because instead of the government properly shoring up the healthcare infrastructure, they've offloaded responsibility onto individuals. And so if you can't get vaccinated, or stay home from work when you're sick, or you can't get access to tests if you suspect you might be sick, then they need to use the heavy-handed approach to, like, lock everything down when the healthcare system gets overwhelmed. Do people realize this? Like, and has anyone contextualized this for them? What are the answers that they are hearing in their bubbles, and, like, how can we help them to sort of wade through all that to get to something that is far closer to the truth?
Well said, and that presents an excellent way of I think wrapping up the COVID talk here. I'm just going to take the last couple minutes of this episode to divert and go into a different subject because I saw this video and I thought it was utterly hilarious and demonstrative of obviously one of everybody's favorite people to make fun of, Ben Shapiro. We're going to show this short Ben Shapiro clip. And what I want to note is when it comes to how we treat children and how we educate them, the right, and like Ben Shapiro, has a lot of things to say about it. How we propagandize children in the classroom and how wrong that is. Even the critical race theory debate, which he is obviously going to be very against, or is very against. And doesn't want the race theory to be taught in schools so kids are conscious of, America's racist history. And, it's unconscionable to be indoctrinating the children with this stuff. Well, I guess as a shtick for his show, he sat in front of a bunch of kindergartners. And let's see what he does.
Government is what takes all of your money and gives you very little in return.
That is not true.
Okay, that's kind. I mean, it's kind
It
of
just
true.
bodies
Depends
him
on the
right
kind of
away.
government.
Taxes are for.
Yeah, that is what taxes are for, but taxes are theft, children. Taxes are, the government takes a part of the money that you spend, or the money that you earn, or the property
Then they
value of your
spend
house.
it on useless stuff. What about debt?
Mostly, yes. I mean, they're supposed to spend it on things like the police. They're not supposed to spend it on just random projects or silly things that they have in their head, and they tend to spend it on kind of silly things very often. But as you get older, you will realize how little you like taxes.
Yeah, he's way off base about that.
I come from a state called California,
Oh, I
where
like
monsters
I actually don't
roam
know
the
what
streets,
show this is from.
and
I really
garbage is
don't.
strewn everywhere. I think that Biden kind of makes up the rules as he goes. I don't think, unfortunately, he cares very much about the rules for being president. I think he just tries to do whatever.
I know Ben had his criticisms about Trump. He wasn't super pro-Trump in a lot of ways, or he was delicately, trying not to be too pro-Trump in optics, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just had 4 years of that guy, right?
And not
It's kinda
just that,
rich.
the part of the reason why.
Not that I don't want to defend Biden.
I was gonna say the reason Biden's not getting a lot done is because he's going too by the book, in that he's just letting.
He's just got no balls, and I don't think he cares to actually get any of it done.
Yeah, it's just,
that's basically it.
So-
And let me tell you, if Biden was getting all the stuff done that he was promising in his initial campaign, Ben Shapiro would be losing his goddamn mind. He would be so angry. But nonetheless, let's watch the end of
Whatever
this.
he can do. Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia is my current favorite Democrat. He's preventing Joe Biden from doing a lot of bad things. So
Yeah,
guys, you just
no
learn
kidding.
more than you will in all of college about how the government works.
So, what is the first thing that Ben Shapiro tries to do when he sits in front of a classroom of children? Just immediately start propagandizing them with very right-wing hot takes
Can we
and
get a
bumper sticker
restraining
philosophy.
order? Did the parents know this was going to
That's
happen?
literally the first thing he does. I just find that hilarious. It's indoctrinating children and trying to teach them this stuff is bad and wrong. You should just let them be children. And then he's just like, yeah, kids, government is stupid and you got to learn that. It's what?
Yeah. Hey,
Again, no consistent values. There's no
Mm-hmm.
consistency in values amongst these people whatsoever.
just that they are shameless shysters.
Yeah.
The lot of
Yeah,
them.
exactly. Ben Shapiro is plainly a sophist and a total hack. So, yeah. Didn't want to go to this. Yeah, clicked the wrong thing. There we go. Well, the show is not about to begin. The show is about to end. I am getting off the air, and I am going to eat some more food, I think. And I got to go get a pack of cigarettes before the store closes. Thank you very much to everybody that has watched. Thank you, Laura Flynn, for tuning in. I did see your comment. Thank you, Kinley, for sending her over this way. And that wraps it up for this week's episode. We will see you next week. Hopefully Nat will be joining us again. And we'll let you know about time and scheduling, because I know next Sunday you're probably going to be busy. So
I'm going to be doing Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah. She's in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
I'm
So,
in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
so yeah, we